We will now have the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, for his presentation.
Madam Speaker, it is with humility, gratitude, and a deep sense of responsibility that I rise to make my contribution to this sectoral debate on agriculture and fisheries. I give thanks to Almighty God for his guidance and strength. Public service is a sacred trust that demands wisdom, integrity, courage, and humility. As members of this honorable house, we are entrusted with the hopes, struggles, and aspirations of the Jamaican people, and we must remain faithful stewards of that responsibility. I express sincere gratitude to my family for their unwavering love, sacrifice, and support. Their encouragement has been a constant source of strength throughout the demands of public life. I also thank the leader of the opposition, the member from South St. Andrew, for his leadership and the confidence that he has placed in me. And I want to specially commend him for his love and commitment to the Jamaican people. To my team members, chief among them are my councillors, the mayor, the councillor for Betheltown, Danry Delancey, the councillor for the Darlington Division, Jerome Bacchus, the councillor for the Leamington Division, Amarcard Brown, and the councillor for the White House Division, Michael Jackson. I also want to recognize my deputy or junior spokesperson, Reverend Dr. Paul Blake, who is also here with us. To the volunteers, researchers, and constituency workers whose dedication help connect our work to the realities faced by our people every day, I say thank you. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, I thank the people of Eastern Westmoreland for the trust they have placed in me. I carried their voices into this chamber. The farmer worried about drought, the fisherman praying for calm seas, the mother struggling with rising food costs, the young person seeking opportunity, and the elderly citizen hoping not to be forgotten. That is why the theme of my contribution is a harvest the people can eat. Success in agriculture and fisheries must not be measured by speeches, announcements, or consultations. It must be measured by results. It must reflect in farmers who have reliable access to water, markets, and protection from disasters. Fishers who have the equipment and support they need. Affordable food for consumers. Thriving rural communities. Meaningful opportunities for young people, and a Jamaica that is less dependent on imported food. When Jamaicans still struggle to afford basic food, when farmers continue to face repeated disaster without timely recovery support, when fishers wait too long for assistance, and when young people remain locked out of agriculture because they cannot access land, financing, training, or markets, we must be honest with ourselves. The system is not delivering as it should. I say this not only as a member of parliament, but as a farmer myself. You're not keeping up if you don't know that I'm a farmer. You're not keeping up, you know. You're not keeping up. You're not keeping up. Madam Speaker, I know. I know the anxiety of waiting on rainfall. I know the disappointment of seeing crops fail after months of labor. In communities like those across Eastern Westmoreland, agriculture is more than abstract policy issues. It is survival, dignity, opportunity, and hope. This debate, therefore, is not merely about statistics or policy documents. It is about whether the people of Jamaica, especially those in rural communities, feel protected, respected, and empowered by the policies of their government. Madam Speaker, I wish to place on the record a biblical principle directly to the issues before us today. Galatians 6:7 reminds us, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Whilst the Apostle Paul was speaking about moral responsibility, he used language every farmer understands. The principle is simple. There is a relationship between what is planted and what is harvested, between choices and consequences, between policy and outcomes. That principle applies equally to public policy. A country that sows weak planning cannot expect strong agricultural sector. A country that underinvests in irrigation, farm roads, agricultural resilience, fisheries infrastructure, and youth participation cannot expect to reap food security and rural prosperity. The scripture also warns us, be not deceived. In policy terms, we must not confuse activity with achievement, announcements with results, or public relations with progress. Consultations, launches, and press releases have their place, but they cannot substitute for practical support that reaches farmers, fishers, and consumers. Therefore, when I speak of a harvest the people can eat, I speak not only of crops and fish, but of the harvest of governance itself. Ultimately, leadership is judged not by what it announces, but by what the people are able to reap from our stewardship. Madam Speaker, agriculture and fisheries are not secondary sectors to be discussed only in times of crisis. They are fundamental to Jamaica's survival, stability, and economic independence. I acknowledge that some work has been done and some progress has been made. I acknowledge also the dedication of farmers, fishers, extension officers, technical staff, and rural communities. However, the real question is whether government policy has produced sufficient improvement in the lives of the people who depend on those sectors. Far too many Jamaicans answer that as no. Madam Speaker, if we wish to assess the true state of agriculture, we must look beyond announcement and examine the results. The figures are sobering. In 2025, Jamaica's food import bill rose to approximately US 1.46 billion. I don't know if the member speaking before has some updated information, because he said the food import bill is at 2 billion. That's US dollars. When the government came to office in 2016, that food import bill was at 834 million US dollars. Approximately 50% of what it is now. At the same time, agricultural exports declined from approximately US 288 million in 2024 to US 278 million in 2025. As a result, Jamaica now imports roughly $5 worth of food for every dollar earned from agricultural exports. These figures should concern every policymaker. Jamaica is blessed with fertile land, a strong agricultural tradition, and thousands of hard-working farmers. Yet we remain heavily dependent on imported food. Madam Speaker, praise for agriculture carries little weight if the food import bill continues to rise while agricultural export continues to decline. Ultimately, the measure of success is not what is announced, but what is achieved for the Jamaican people. Jamaica remains heavily dependent on imported food and agricultural inputs. As a result, we are exposed to global price increases, supply chain disruption, exchange rate pressure, and international events beyond our control, as the war in Iran, between Iran and Israel, is now affecting us. Madam Speaker, the government should identify those products that can be produced or substituted locally and develop targeted strategies to expand domestic production. This includes strengthening local feed production, supporting crops such as cassava, sweet potato, breadfruit, onions, Irish potato, sorghum, and providing incentives for farmers producing priority commodities. In the debate that we had on the Jamaica Dairy Board, I spoke about the opportunity that is there for milk and beef trimmings. But Irish potato, Madam Speaker, Jamaica imports between 19.5 million and 21 million tons of French fries annually, at a cost to the country of more than US $30 million each year. These figures, drawn from the last 5 years, highlight a significant opportunity for import substitution, value-added production, and rural economic growth. When the National Development Plan speaks of agribusinesses and value chain development, farmers and the wider agricultural sector expect to see practical strategies that can transform these imports into local production. Specifically, the country should be pursuing a plan to replace those imported French fries with the domestic production of approximately 34 to 36 million kilograms of Irish potatoes, based on a conversion ratio of 1.75 kilograms of Irish potatoes for every kilogram of French fries produced. Madam Speaker, the opportunities arising from such an initiative would extend across several agricultural regions of Jamaica. We have already demonstrated the capacity to successfully cultivate Irish potato in Manchester, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, St. James, and the Guysill Belt, spanning St. Catherine, St. Mary, and St. Anne. Many farming communities, including those in my own constituency, stand ready to participate and benefit from such an expansion. Based on the current yield that we get in Jamaica of approximately 15 metric tons per hectare, if we were to take on that full demand, we would put 2,000 hectares of Irish potato under production. Madam Speaker, this is precisely the type of strategic thinking, detailed planning, and measurable economic opportunity that our farmers expect when government speaks about national development. Agribusiness and value chain development cannot remain abstract concepts in policy documents. They must be translated into clear production targets. Madam Speaker, I welcome the National Agricultural Development Plan and the efforts to establish a long-term vision for the sector. Jamaica needs a serious agricultural strategy, and on that principle there should be broad agreement in this House. However, our greatest challenge is not a lack of diagnosis. We already know the problems. We know that irrigation remains inadequate, access to financing and technology is limited, storage capacity is insufficient, production planning is inconsistent, export system can be burdensome, and too many farmers and fishers remain disconnected from the benefits of national policy. The danger is that the National Agricultural Development Plan becomes another document that accurately identifies problems but fails to meaningfully deliver change. Plans by themselves do not transform a country. Execution does. Execution requires clear priorities, measurable targets, transparent budget, defined responsibilities, regular reporting, and the political will to follow through. That is why I call for a public implementation framework to be attached to the plan, one that identifies priority projects, timelines, funding sources, implementing agencies, and measurable outcomes. The Jamaican people deserve to know not only what is proposed, but how success will be measured and when results can be expected. Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa exposed serious weaknesses in the way we protect and support the people who feed this country. I witnessed the devastation firsthand in eastern Westmoreland. I met farmers who saw months of labor destroyed overnight. I spoke to fishers who lost boats, engine, traps, and equipment. I saw families wondering how they would recover and whether they could afford to start again. Behind every damaged farm is a family. Behind every destroyed boat is a livelihood. And behind every statistic is a human story. The damage revealed not only the impact of a hurricane, but the vulnerability of the systems on which farmers and fishers depend. No government can prevent a hurricane. The true test of leadership, however, is whether recovery systems are strong enough to respond quickly and help people rebuild with dignity. On that test, many farmers and fishers believe the system fell short. The issue is not the storm itself. Jamaicans understand that hurricanes are part of our reality. The issue is what happened after the storm passed. Too many people waited too long for assistance, too many remained uncertain about available support, and too many felt forgotten once public attention moved on. Recovery cannot depend on hope. It requires funding, clear timelines, transparent criteria, and public accountability. I therefore call on the government to table a comprehensive recovery report to Parliament detailing the assistance delivered, beneficiaries reached, funds allocated and disbursed, outstanding needs, and measures being implemented to strengthen resilience against future disaster. Most importantly, disaster recovery must be built around the realities of production. Farmers cannot wait indefinitely to replant crops. Livestock require daily feed, and fishers must return to sea quickly to support their families. Madam Speaker, the first recommendation I place before the House in this is the establishment of a permanent agriculture and fisheries disaster recovery fund. Such a fund should not be created after every hurricane, flood, or drought. It should not depend on emergency appeals or delayed budget allocations after livelihoods have been destroyed. It should be a standing national fund, financed annually and ready to be activated immediately when disaster strikes. Jamaica is vulnerable to hurricanes, floods, droughts, and other climate-related events. These risks are predictable. Our response system should therefore be proactive, not reactive. A permanent fund would allow government to move from crisis management to preparedness. It would provide farmers and fishers with confidence that support will be available through a clear, transparent mechanism whenever disaster causes significant losses. The fund should serve 5 core purposes: providing emergency assistance to affected producers, replacing critical productive assets, supporting temporary livelihoods where incomes have been disrupted, accelerating replanting and restocking, and helping producers rebuild in ways that are more resilient to future disasters. Importantly, recovery must be linked to production. The objective is not simply to compensate losses, but to help farmers return to their fields and fishers return to the sea as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, every disaster teaches the same lesson. Delayed recovery increases hardship, weakens food security, and slows economic growth. A permanent recovery fund would help ensure that assistance is timely, predictable, and focused on restoring livelihoods. If we know the disaster will come, then preparedness is not an option, it is a responsibility. Madam Speaker, for the fund to succeed, it must be transparent, efficient, and trusted by the people it is designed to serve. It cannot become another program defined by delay, uncertainty, or discretion. It must operate according to clear rules, clear timelines, and clear accountability. Farmers and fishers should know who qualifies, what losses are covered, what support is available, and how assistance can be accessed. Once a disaster is declared and the fund is activated, application should be processed through a simple and accessible system supported by RADA, Fisheries Authority, and parish-level recovery teams. Most importantly, recovery must be timely. Damage assessment should begin immediately. Emergency assistance should reach affected producers within weeks, and regular public reports should provide transparency on beneficiaries, funding, and progress. The fund should also be supported by parish-level agricultural and fisheries recovery teams established before disaster occurs. Their role would be to assess damage, verify losses, coordinate assistance, and ensure that support reaches those most in need quickly and fairly. Madam Speaker, preparedness is not simply about forecasting storms. It is about having systems in place to protect livelihoods, restore production, and help people recover with dignity when disaster strikes. The obvious question is how such a fund would be financed. The answer is that it should not depend on a single source of funding. A permanent agriculture and fishery disaster recovery fund should be supported through a blended model that combines annual government allocations, climate finance, insurance mechanism, development partner support, and private sector partnership. Madam Speaker, a responsible nation does not wait until livelihoods are destroyed before searching for funding. It prepares in advance. Equally important, Madam Speaker, is accountability. The fund should be independently audited, report annually to Parliament, and publish recovery reports after major disasters, detailing how funds were allocated, who benefited, and what outcomes were achieved. The Jamaican people should not have to guess how disaster funds are being spent. Transparency must be built into the system from the beginning. I propose the establishment of an oversight body as well, comprising of representatives of government, opposition, farmers and fishers organizations, and other relevant stakeholders to strengthen public confidence and ensure fair administration. Madam Speaker, the issue before us is not whether resources can be found. The issue is whether we are prepared to build permanent systems that ensure those resources reach the people who need them the most when they need them the most. This is not simply an agricultural priority. It is a national responsibility and one that should unite us across party lines. Madam Speaker, disaster recovery is essential, but recovery alone cannot be our strategy. We must place equal emphasis on reducing vulnerability before disaster strikes. Climate change is no longer a future concern. It is a present reality. Farmers are facing longer droughts, more intense hurricanes, irregular rainfall, flooding, heat stress, and increased pest pressures. Fishers are confronting changing marine conditions and increasingly dangerous seas. The question is whether we are doing enough to help them adapt. Serious resilience program must include expanded irrigation, water harvesting system, protected agriculture, drought-resistant crops, improved drainage, hurricane-resistant infrastructure, coastal protection, and modern early warning systems. Resilience cannot remain a word that appears only in reports and speeches. It must be reflected in the investment we make and the systems we build. Madam Speaker, one of the fastest and most practical ways to strengthen food security is to reduce post-harvest loss. Too much of what our farmers produce never reaches to the consumers. Valuable produce is lost because of inadequate storage, limited cold chain infrastructure, insufficient processing capacity, and weaknesses in moving goods efficiently from farm to market. At a time when farmers are working hard to increase production, consumers are facing high food prices. Such losses are simply unacceptable. The government should therefore prioritize parish-level aggregation and distribution centers where produce can be sorted, graded, stored, processed, and connected to reliable markets. These facilities should be linked to schools, hospitals, hotels, supermarkets, exporters, and agro-processors to strengthen the journey from farm to table. We must also improve access to market intelligence. Farmers need timely information on demand, prices, and market opportunities so that production decisions can be guided by data rather than guesswork. Madam Speaker, reducing post-harvest loss is about more than preventing waste. It is about increasing farmers' incomes, improving food affordability, strengthening supply chains, and making better use of what Jamaica already produces. In relation to youth in agriculture, Madam Speaker, if Jamaica is serious about the future of agriculture, then we must be equally serious about investing in young people who will shape that future. The minister spoke about youth engagement and developing the next generation of agricultural leaders. An objective that this deserves broad support. However, the cancellation of the National 4-H Achievement Day 2026 has raised legitimate concerns among students, parents, teachers, and stakeholders across the sector. National Achievement Day is more than an event. It is a platform that recognizes excellence, encourages innovation, builds confidence, and exposes young people to opportunities in agriculture, agribusiness, science, and entrepreneurship. For many students, particularly those in rural communities, it is their opportunity to showcase their talent on a national stage. Against that background, the cancellation is disappointing and warrants a clear explanation. At a time when we are encouraging young people to enter agriculture, opportunities for recognition and participation should be expanding and not shrinking. I therefore call on the government to provide a full explanation for the cancellation, commit to restoring National Achievement Day in 2027, and consider hosting an alternative National Youth Agricultural Showcase this year so that students who have worked hard are not deprived of an opportunity to display their achievements. The 4-H movement also needs to be properly funded. Madam Speaker, Jamaica needs a clear and structured pathway for young people to enter and succeed in agriculture. That pathway should begin in our schools, extend through training, land access, financing, business development, and marketing opportunities. Madam Speaker, I also wish to recognize the indispensable contribution of women to the agricultural sector. Women are farmers, agro-processors, entrepreneurs, vendors, and community leaders. They play a critical role in food production, value-added processing, household food security, and rural development. Yet many continue to face barriers in accessing land, financing, equipment, irrigation, transportation, and farmer markets. If we are serious about agricultural development, then we must be equally serious about removing those barriers. I therefore support targeted programs that expand access to financing, training, processing, packaging, branding, and market opportunities for women-led agricultural enterprise and cooperatives. Particular attention should be given to rural women involved in value-added production, where agriculture creates not only income, but employment and economic activity within communities. Madam Speaker, investing in women is not simply a social objective. It is a sound economic strategy. When women in agriculture succeed, families are strengthened, communities become more resilient, and the nation moves closer to achieving food security and inclusive growth. If Jamaica is serious about developing its blue economy, then we must invest in the foundations of a modern fisheries industry. Fisheries need reliable landing sites, cold storage facilities, ice-making plants, market access, timely weather information, and stronger cooperative structure that improves efficiency and strengthens their position within the ecosystem. Madam Speaker, on the issue of predial larceny, no serious agricultural policy can ignore predial larceny. Farmers cannot be expected to invest, expand production, or encourage the next generation to enter agriculture if criminals can steal livestock and crops with little fear of consequences. Predial larceny is more than theft. It is an attack on rural livelihoods, food security, and economic growth. It undermines confidence, discourages investment, and weakens the agricultural sector. The government must strengthen its response through better coordination among law enforcement, farmers' organizations, local communities. Improve farm registration, stronger livestock identification system. And if you speak to most cattle farmers currently, Madam Speaker, they will tell you that they can't get any tags for their animals. So in essence, what we are doing is turning the hard-working farmers of the country into criminals when they are caught with these animals that they cannot properly identify. We need continued investment in farm roads. And Madam Speaker, on the issue of farm roads, the minister often stands up to talk about how many farm roads have been done. And oftentimes, it is about 300 or 400 meters of farm road when the road leading to the farm is 5 kilometers. And they've only repaired a section of 300 or 400 meters to say that we do 200 roads. That is not efficient, Madam Speaker, and that is not transformative. Madam Speaker, Jamaica must do more to capture the full value of what our farmers produce. Too often, the greatest economic value is created after harvest through processing, packaging and branding and marketing. Agro-processing therefore represents one of the clearest opportunities to increase incomes, reduce post-harvest losses, create jobs and expand exports. Whether it is fruits being transformed into juices, cassava processed into flour, or spices converted into value-added products, every stage of processing allows Jamaica to retain more wealth within the local economy. Madam Speaker, one of the greatest tests of government is whether promises are translated into measurable results. Too often, programs are announced and resources are allocated without sufficient public reporting on outcomes and impact. The Jamaican people deserve to know not only what was promised, but what was delivered. I therefore propose that the ministry publish an annual agriculture and fisheries sector scorecard reporting on key indicators such as farmers and fishers support, youth and women participation, agricultural expansion, farm road improvement, disaster recovery assistance, fisheries development, post-harvest loss reduction, and efforts to strengthen food security. Prime Minister, transparency is not a burden. It is a pillar of good governance. Clear reporting strengthens accountability, improves decision-making, and builds public confidence. If we are serious about transforming agriculture and fisheries, then performance must be measured not by announcements made, but by the results delivered. Madam Speaker, the opposition offers a practical agenda focused on implementation, accountability, and results. Our priorities are clear: a permanent agriculture and fisheries disaster recovery fund, a national food import reduction plan, stronger support for youth through Jamaica 4-H Club and a youth in agriculture program, a modernized and resilient fisheries sector, stronger response to predial larceny, greater investment in farm roads, irrigation, storage, and agro-processing, expanded opportunity for women in agriculture, increased access to financing, insurance, and risk management tools, and greater transparency through annual sector scorecard and public reporting. Madam Speaker, Jamaica just does not need more promises without delivery or plans without implementation. What our farmers and fishers need are policies that increase production, strengthen food security, expand opportunity, and improve livelihoods. This is the agenda we are proposing. That is the standard we should demand, and that is the future our agriculture and fisheries sector deserves. Madam Speaker, as the Member of Parliament for Eastern Westmoreland, I have witnessed the resilience, determination, and hard work of our farmers, fishers, and rural communities. They're not asking for favors. They're asking for opportunity. They're asking for partnership. They're asking for leadership that matches words with action. The opposition stands ready to support every measure that genuinely advances those goals, but we will continue to demand accountability, transparency, and results. because the Jamaican people deserve nothing less. And so, I return to the central theme of this debate. The true measure of success is not what is announced, but what is achieved. It is measured in the farmer who can earn a fair return from the land. It is measured in the fisher who can return safely to sea. It is measured in the young person who sees a future in agriculture. It is measured in families who can afford the food they need and in rural communities that can thrive with dignity and hope. That is the harvest Jamaica needs. That is the harvest our people deserve. And that is the harvest that we must all work together to achieve. Thank you very much.
Good time.